Hello everyone, my name is Lynn Jones and I'm a part-time student in the School of Education in my second year of the research phase of my Ed.D, a professional doctorate in education. Leadership at all levels is promoted in Scottish education through things like the GTC, General Teaching Council Scotland's professional standards. As an aspect of the leadership at all levels agenda, it is claimed by Torrance and Murphy, amongst others, that there are tensions that exist in Scottish education system between the practical realities for teacher leaders in their context and what they call a policy fudge around teacher leadership as a concept, where it's positioned as being one of the solutions to the system-wide challenges currently faced. So with that in mind, my doctoral study is a multi-method qualitative exploration into how teacher leadership is understood and experienced in Scotland. In the rest of this presentation, I will share the three-pronged digital recruitment strategy I employed between October 2020 and April 2021. And I will explain how it relates to Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and to quality education. So to set the scene, I am a qualified teacher, been working in Scottish education system for over 2 decades now. I worked in primary schools in different areas of Scotland for 13 years before taking on a non-school based role. That's about supporting teacher professional learning in languages education. And in terms of my thesis, I identify as a teacher leader myself, even though I haven't got a classroom. And I am very aware of being a beginner researcher too. Now, back in 2015, when I submitted the dissertation for my master's at another institution, my markers identified the recruitment strategy for that study was a kind of notable weakness of it. So when it came to my doctoral thesis, I was really keen to improve on that. Anyway, coming back up to date again. By spring 2020 then, my thesis proposal for my doctorate had been accepted, my ethics proposal had been approved, and my research design comprised 2 distinct phases of data gathering. Then the pandemic hit. And as was the case for everyone, everything, including keeping going with the research, became a whole lot more challenging. Unexpectedly, I found myself trying to recruit people for data gathering at a time when, well, first of all, we were all living, working, and trying to research remotely from each other. Secondly, the whole education system and everybody working in it was under extreme pressure. And the idea was that I wanted to come across as an approachable person, an approachable researcher, and I didn't want the research process to be too scary that kind of people were put off by it. I wanted to demystify it, really. That was the idea. So I was researching from home. Now, I did continue with the more traditional analog strand of my recruitment strategy, whereby I contacted gatekeepers, such as the professional learning leads in local authorities, the programme leads at universities who are offering courses, academic courses for pre-service and in-service teachers. So I did that. I emailed those gatekeepers flyers, giving a wee bit of information and contact details, so anybody who was interested could follow up. So I did that. But I did more than I had originally anticipated using these digital tools, 3 digital tools, so YouTube, Wordpress, and Twitter. So here's my wonderful YouTube channel. And so you can see that basically what I did was create a video, also known as a participant information clip or a PIC, for the 2 phases of data gathering. And all that was I went into a Zoom call with myself and I recorded myself speaking to camera, and it was very informal. You can see there, that's what that was. If I go into the first one, so for phase 1, it's a slightly shorter one. I'll take you to that page. You don't need to watch the whole video, not right now anyway. but underneath there's a wee bit of information. And another thing I like to do is use kind of shorten my links and give them names that are quite memorable, so that it might kind of stick in people's head. So there you go, there's links to, you know, the key parts of phase 1 information.
There are some views there, but I'll explain in a moment why I think that that's not the place where most people saw it. But wherever they did see the clips, there is evidence that the clips did work to demystify the research process for participants and respondents to the survey, and encourage them to kind of complete and to participate. Several of my phase 1 respondents gave me feedback and said that the clip was quote, helpful, very informative was another phrase they used, and it gave them a feeling of personal connection with the researcher, making them want to complete the survey more, was what they said. So yeah, the number of views does in the channel does indicate engagement, but it wasn't the only place. What I also did was embed the clips on my study blog. Now, Wordpress is the blogging tool that I've used for reflecting and capturing the process of the journey of my doctorate since the taught stage of my MD back in 2017. But for each phase of recruitment, I made a separate page, standalone page, and embedded those clips in there, so that there was that for people to watch if that was a helpful way of sharing the information, and it does seem from that feedback that it was, along with the more traditional participant information sheet that you could download and read, the privacy statement that you could download and read, before getting to the link for the digital consent and survey that was done through Qualtrics. And this is the link that would take you there, kind of untraceable really. Because it opens in a separate room, a separate window rather, then this will still be open on your browser when you finished with it, when it's all done. So maybe you might want to download the flyer and share it with your teacher pals, or you might be super keen to find out how else you can help with this study. So if you want to, you can send me a question, and if you fill in that, then it pings me with email, or have a wee nosy at the recruitment page for the second phase. And again, it's set up very similar. You've got the question and a little bit of information here. Longer video this time because there's a bit more to explain. I think if I was doing it in future, I'd definitely try and keep the videos a bit more concise, that's for sure. But again, you've got your participation sheet, your privacy notice, and if you're still okay, you still haven't been put off, then you say yes please, and that sends me an email, and then I get back in touch with you directly from there. And the blog I found really allowed recruitment to be sustainable to quite a significant extent, really, because people can access it at any time that they want. It's always there and live and accessible. So even prior to phase 2 interview recruitment proper opening in March 2021, I'd already received multiple expressions of interest from that came via the page there, the phase 1 kind of contact box, really. So that accounted for 150% of my original projection for participant numbers for phase 2. Now, that sounds loads, but actual, hard numbers was relatively small. So I'd originally was aiming for 6 interview participants. So I got 9 expressions of interest from phase 1 people. 5 of those followed through, and I've interviewed them now. And then when I opened phase 2 recruitment properly, I recruited, I had numerous expressions of interest. We followed through up with 3 people. So I've got 8 where I wanted 6. I've got room, a bit of leeway for attrition if it comes to it. Now, Twitter has kept me connected with schools and expanded my professional network, especially since I moved out of the classroom into my non-school-based role that I'm currently in now. And for purposes of this study, during both phases of recruitment, I had twinned tweets like this one. And
you can see that I made use of emojis. You probably can't see on there that I had alt text, so that gave a description of what the images were, so that supports accessibility certainly. Hashtags, that one had the Strathclyde D hashtag on it, but I was using hashtags related to professional learning courses and academic courses that teachers might be doing. I kind of quote tweeted that a lot, and tagged in local authorities or regional improvement collaboratives, educational kind of organisations that were relevant, and things like that, subject organisations and such like. So I think this was for phase 1. And there we go. And you can see even at that stage, it had quite a number of retweets and quite a lot of activity on there. This was for phase 2. So this was for the interview bit. So if we're talking about reach, Twitter helped, I would say, extend that reach. Analytics revealed there was considerable liking, retweeting, quoting of the tweets that those types of tweets that I put out. I was putting them out, every couple of days or so for a while. That level of activity didn't necessarily equate to a comparably extremely high level of participation, I wouldn't say, but at a time when teachers were very busy indeed and locked down, I would say this definitely contributed to a far greater uptake than I had anticipated for the phase 1 survey, certainly. I'm talking about, again, well over 100% of the original target sample. I had aimed to get 30 responses to that phase 1 survey. I ended up with 43 complete survey responses. So I'm going to stop sharing because I want to briefly summarize the findings, the limitations and the implications for this digital recruitment strategy. My findings then, overall, as I say, in a period of time when people were isolated from each other and kind of relationships of any sort were difficult to maintain, let alone establish from scratch, this digital approach to recruitment for research proved to be pretty sustainable and accessible to people across space and time. There were limitations, obviously. Digital tools were only accessible to people who had access and online connections and access to the digital tools themselves. The informal tone of the participant information clips was appropriate, but in future, I think I mentioned it already, I would definitely record shorter clips, more concise, that could be embedded in the tweets. I just had the links, but I think I would like to be able to embed the tweets so that they would just play automatically. I'd also have them with subtitles because that would improve accessibility as well. But I think that's my own digital literacy needs to be upskilled to manage that. Of course, there's other digital tools such as Facebook, Instagram that are available, and targeted use of those particular tools may have reached more or at least different Scottish educators. So that could have been an option. But the implications, though, really interested me. The multifaceted recruitment strategy employed in this small-scale qualitative study seems to demonstrate that connecting with people visually, they can see you, they can look you in the eyes, if you like, connecting with people in your target audience directly from really the very earliest stage, motivated a good many of them to participate fully in the research, so kind of commit. Health, economic and education inequalities were very much laid bare in this pandemic. Lessons learned, such as those, about the research design during that time continue to be applicable. As such, I would argue that research recruitment strategies using digital tools tailored to particular target audiences could ultimately lead to improved representation of lesser heard voices in educational research, with subsequent influence on policy and practice at all different levels potentially. The implications of this study relate directly in that way to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 about quality education, and actually I believe also have application in other spheres of qualitative research. So I've got 2 final things to share with you. So for more research into the use of digital tools in recruitment, you may find these references of interest. But otherwise, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to this presentation about my digital recruitment strategy. And thank you very much. I would definitely be really pleased to respond to any questions or comments that you have right now. You can contact me, the details are on the screen, by email or social media. Your comments and questions are very welcome.